Recording. I'll take it away, Ash.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for organizing, first of all, Ash. And I know that you guys have, many of you have made the commitment and effort to come in today. And I'm really grateful you've taken the time to do that. I wish I'm there to meet you in person and to get to know some of your businesses and what you do, but hopefully we'll also have that opportunity during the session as much as I can. And I've asked Ash to be a bit of my translator, to help me sort of maybe point out if someone has put their hand up or wants to ask a question or make a comment, that you're more than welcome to do so. This is I don't want this whole hour to be about me presenting to you. Hopefully it is a conversation. I really welcome a two-way dialogue with you as well. So without further ado, let me introduce myself. My name is Mindy Leow. I'm the head of growth and impact at B Lab Australia and New Zealand. We are a not-for-profit organization behind the B Corp certification, which maybe some of you might have heard about. So first question, who's heard of B Corp? Some of them, many hands have gone up. So that's wonderful. Hopefully you've read the Eventbrite notification and heard of B Corp that way or before. But it's I've been in this role for 6 years and I've seen the B Lab movement really grow here in Australia as well as globally. I'll tell you a bit more today, but our session in the next hour is not to we'll tell you about what we do, which is led by B Corp certification, but the intent is actually to leave you with a useful tool that you can take away as part of your toolkit that you can use to help your company progress and further your sustainability journey. So without further ado, let me just try to share my screen. I think Ash, you might have to allow me to do that. So whilst we're doing that, I'm just going to see if we can start with a round of questions as well. So please put your hand up if you either work in a business or you own or run a business. Okay, great. So assuming if you didn't have your hand up, you may be working with government or your sort of in between moves. That's great. Many of you are working in businesses. Put your hand up if you care about the environment or the well-being of people. Yep, great, awesome. That's a really good start. And keep your hand up if you think that your company that you're working with, your organization, is intentionally creating positive social and environmental impact in your organization. Yes, wow, that's amazing. So that's a number of you. And you've been doing this for a while now. So those of you who had your hand up before, like you've been doing this for at least 12 months or more, and you feel like, yes, we're pretty proud of what we're doing. Amazing. Keep your hand up. A lot of hands up. That's really good. Keep your hand up if you're willing to tell me what are those things that you're really proud of. Great. I have some volunteers. So maybe I think I saw 2 to 3 hands. Can you introduce yourself and your company and just tell us one thing that you're really proud of?
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
So I'm proud of connecting hundreds of farmers to households across New South Wales and helping households connect with that food in a new way that's ultimately building the sustainability of the farmers that are farming in a way that actually do care and support the environment in ways that we all obviously care about as people.
That's amazing. Can you tell us your name and your company name?
Yeah, Joshua Allen, company is Organic Food Hub.
Sounds amazing, Organic Food Hub. And I saw that there might have been another 1 or 2 hands that went up. Yes, thank you. Please go ahead, lady in red.
Hi. My name's Kim. I have a cafe, grocery and homeware store called The Happy Frog, and I run some community markets down by the beach every Sunday. They've both been going a long time, 13 and 15 years. So way back then when it was started, I had the feeling of making it a connection for the community. And sometimes you do these things intuitively and you don't quite know where it's going to go. But the thing I feel most proud of is that those businesses have been fair, sustainable, look after the environment, but they've still stood up on their own 2 feet and made a profit So that was, to me, it took a long time, but it got there in the end. And I think that's the hopeful thing, that sometimes we think that trying to do things differently and fairly is going to cost more, but mostly it doesn't. It just has to be thoughtful.
I love that. There's so many things in your share that I love, that it takes time, it takes commitment, but it's worthwhile. And I hear the hope and the positivity in that, which I really love. So thank you for sharing. And what's your name again?
Kim.
Kim. Thank you, Kim. And thank you, Josh, before. Is there a third person that would like to share? Yes, gentleman in the back.
My name is Josh Walkers. I run Solar Run, a local solar business. I've actually been in the industry for 15 years, but went out on my own with a business partner 1 year ago. We currently employ 8 people locally. So I'm pretty proud of working locally, supporting locally, and really working on our business being environmentally friendly and sustainable for the future. So my biggest take from this one with the business is actually the pleasure in supporting local people and local families.
That's incredible. Thank you for that. Yes, and you are in a very needed business as well, of transforming our energy profile in the country. So thank you for your share. I'd love to hear more, but I'm conscious that we should really kick on, and hopefully, we'll have some of you kind of ask questions and also share about your business further down in the presentation. But if you can see my screen, give me a thumbs up. Yes, awesome. So just a little bit about me. I am originally born and raised in Malaysia, but I've lived in the US for more than a decade, where I worked in big corporate and also small businesses. That's where the corporate refugee part came from. But I had a change of career when I moved to Australia about 14 years ago, to further study and also to really change careers into having more purpose in my work. And so I went to work in the social enterprise sector for 5 years with an organization called Social Traders. Some of you may have heard of them. They certify social enterprises. And I'm really enamored with this business model of creating profit and purpose. And it's really not about trade-offs. And it does take time. I think what Kim said, it's really rewarding when you can get it right, and when you can see that, profits are really used to enrich people's lives, local communities, as well as protect the environment. And I am very passionate about climate change, and that's really what's been kind of spurred my career change, thanks to Al Gore and his first movie, The Inconvenient Truth, that has kind of led my trajectory. And I still believe that, we can really, I still believe in the speed of change, and that even though there's a lot of urgency around climate change, I do believe that when people come together, we can make change better and faster together. And so what gives me hope is people like you who show up and who come and do the work, and they want to take agency in whatever way that they can in their lives, whether as a consumer, as an employee of an organization, as a business owner, or as an investor. So that's what fuels me. That's what gets me out of bed every morning, to work with kind of purpose-driven people in companies. So a little bit about B Lab. We are a not-for-profit organization. When I joined 6 years ago, we were 3 people. And this morning we were on a team call and there were 13, and there were not enough real estate on the screen to have everybody's faces on Google Meet. So we've actually seen a incredible growth in sustainability, but our objective for 15 years now, and this movement started in America actually, where B Lab as a not-for-profit first started, and now we're a network of global not-for-profits. Our vision remains the same, which is that we're here to redefine success in business. And what we want to see is an economic system that is inclusive, equitable, and regenerative, benefiting all people and planet. So just a little bit of context around why this is important is that we have I studied one of this, the article written by Milton Friedman when I came to Australia to do my master's degree. And he wrote a very seminal article in the New York Times published in the 1970s. And basically, it's talking about the accountability of business. And Milton Friedman was very clear that, business should be accountable to no one but their shareholders. Whereas I think after 50 years of operating this way, it maybe is time for a new approach. And so, if we look at some other, what's happening in the business, global business arena, more and more companies are demanding or wanting companies to have social and environmental purpose. And it's not only about financial performance, but it's also about how to make a positive contribution to society. And this is a quote taken from Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, which is one of the biggest investment firms in the world. So, the narrative has changed quite a bit, but we're not just seeing it from the elite of society. Australians believe that 9 out of 10 believe that stakeholders, not shareholders, are most important to a company's long-term success. And many believe that companies should be responsible and should be taking actions to improve conditions for communities where it operates. And there's some really great statistics coming out from Edelman Trust Barometer. And this is one of the largest global surveys that is run annually in the world. And there are some really, really fascinating trends happening around the state of people's trust towards their institutions, including the media and the government. And interestingly, people are consumers are expecting companies to take lead. And not only that, they're willing to reward them when they're doing so. So the statistics are showing that not just consumers, but also employees are asking organizations to be more purposeful because people want to come to work and feel like they're contributing towards something meaningful. So what we're actually witnessing is an evolution in business where we're moving from a 20th century of shareholder capitalism, which is extractive and exclusive, to one that's about stakeholders, where it is inclusive and it's regenerative, and it's about solving multiple issues and outcomes. One of the proofs of this, and this is just one of the many data points, is the growth that we're seeing within the B Corp community. So I said that B Lab has been around for 15 years. We've been in Australia for 9, and it took us about 14 years to get to 4,000 B Corps. And then it went from 4,000 to 5,000 in 1 year. But since the pandemic in March 2020, we've received 6,000 applications for B Corp certification. And this is really speaking to the growth of businesses pursuing purpose in their companies. And globally, there are more than 5,000 B Corps and close to 450 now in Australia and New Zealand. And in our region, these companies are trading over 9 billion in annual turnover, which is not insignificant, and it's really come a long way. So we love seeing this trend happening, and we love to see that you are here wanting to be part of that as well. I won't go into the detail of this, but I'll just really let you look at this. Is our Declaration of Interdependence. This is kind of our highest value statement to say that companies and people in this movement believe that business ought to be conducted as if people and place matter, and we must be the change that we seek in the world. So it's a really good place to start with. And there's definitely a community of organizations coming together. Some of them are taking collective action. And these are some examples of the collective action initiatives that are here in Australia, New Zealand, as well as globally. Recently, there's a B Beauty Coalition that is formed by a number of B Corps in the beauty industry, including The Body Shop and Aesop, and Natura, and they're really coming together to solve some of the challenging issues and how to elevate the whole sector in terms of their positive impact, as well as management of the negative impact. And of course, there's lots of work being done around climate, around decarbonization, as well as in advocacy. including here in Australia. The two newspaper ads are some of the work that our kind of volunteer group of B Corps in Australia have been involved in. So here are just some logos of the companies that we work with. There are some names that I'm sure you will recognize. Ely Coffee in Italy have been one of the early, recent certifications, The Guardian, Athleta, and Patagonia, one of the early ones as well. And on this next slide, you'll probably notice a lot more familiar logos. And all over Australia and New Zealand as well, including sort of where you guys are located. So this movement is definitely growing, and we're seeing the movement also being led by larger companies who are kind of leaning into being held to account and wanting to take up certification to really align to a set of global standards to enable them to embed ESG into their operations. So coming back to B Lab's work, although we lead with certification, and that's what I've said, most people know us for B Corp certification, and that kind of encapsulates a lot of what we do. But we see our work as a lot more than that. Ultimately, our goal is about changing the economic system, as I mentioned, and we believe that we can do this. We want to do this in three ways. Firstly is to change norms and culture and behavior. So the B Corp certification, as well as the free B Impact Assessment tool, which I'm about to tell you more, is one of those opportunities or levers of doing that. And when we have more businesses changing their behavior and changing their practices and operations, we start to see norms and culture shift. And I think that's what we're starting to see now around the globe, in that, this is no longer just a feel-good way of running your business, but also what fundamentally governs, enables purpose-driven companies to thrive, policies, laws, and legal structures. And B Lab is also engaged globally in many countries to facilitate, to have the enabling infrastructure or market infrastructure for purpose-driven companies to thrive and to protect their mission in the long term. So these are some of the levers that we see our work falling into. And one of the things that we want to tell you about is the free B Impact Assessment tool. So this is the tool used for B Corp certification. It is actually a free tool. And it is an impact measurement and management tool. For a small company, it takes about half a day, a few hours, to answer the 200 or so questions in the B Impact Assessment. And it gives you a score. And the score is an indication of the positive impact that you're having as a business on your stakeholders. And we look at, there are 5 areas in the assessment, including impact on workers, community, customers, the environment, as well as governance. And so we strongly believe that, to manage your impact, you have to first measure it, because you can't manage what you don't measure. So we offer this as a free tool, and it's been used by over 200,000 companies globally, who are, some of them on the journey to B Corp certification, but many of them are really simply using this as a way to understand their business and to improve and to be better. So I encourage you to have a look at this. And the 3 things you will get out of using the B Impact Assessment is, firstly, to assess the positive impact of your company, get a baseline score, and then you can benchmark yourself against other companies in your class. So because we have so many companies in different sizes and sectors, you can see how you're actually comparing with the similar companies. But more and most importantly is that last bit about improvement. We have goal setting functions, and we also have learning tools to give you examples about how companies are actually making a positive impact in the particular area of operations, so that you can decide for yourself if that's something you want to pursue and how you can make that happen in your organization. So there are lots of resources that we provide as well to enable companies to improve their impact. And as a training organization, we also offer services and training programs and consultants if companies need support in doing that. But there's no obligation to use any of our services. The tool is free. And the tool is also holistic, as I said. So it looks at all areas of your operation, and it focuses on positive impact. it's also objective and aspirational. So B Corp certification is 80 points out of a 200 plus scale. And most companies that take the assessment for the first time probably come in about 50 or so points. And this is just the average, right? It is designed to be intentionally challenging. And so, that is really the kind of continuous improvement that we encourage companies to embark on. And we change the standards every 3 years. So if companies are looking to certify, they will be recertifying every 3 years on a slightly different, better set of standards as well that incorporates changes in technology, changes in regulations, changes in best practice. So it's about, it's not about doing something for once and putting it on the shelf. It's about that continuous learning journey. And finally, the B Corp, the BIA, the B Impact Assessment, is also community-based, meaning we recognize that we don't work in isolation or in a vacuum. We collaborate with other standard-setting organizations. We map to their standards as well. So if your organization is already reporting to other reporting standards like the GRI, for example, it should make your job of completing the B Impact Assessment a lot easier, because we try to look for the similar types of indicators. So that's about leveraging third-party standards. And if your organization has credible standards, such as in green building certifications or neighbors certification, or if you're buying inputs that have organic certification or fair trade certification, those are just a number of credible certifications. In fact, we have dozens of them in the B Impact Assessment that we recognize that will give you extra points in this tool. So I've talked about the 5 areas of the assessment, and it really drills down into many different parts of your operations. And even some of the most sort of progressed or, larger organizations that have been investing in ESG for a number of years, I bet you that there will be something that you will learn that is an opportunity for you to kind of further along. So here are some of the topics that are covered within each area. So governance is all about whether you have the right governance structures to incorporate social and environmental impacts, appropriate KPIs, accountability and transparency, ethics policies, etc. The worker section is about, whether you're creating high quality jobs and employees are satisfied, what kind of training and advancements and benefits are given to workers. Community is about how an organization gives back to their local communities in terms of charitable giving or civic engagement. It's also about building the local economy, as Jeff said earlier. It's also about the communities that you may buy from. So sometimes it includes overseas communities, long supply chains that come from, if you're a coffee roaster, that includes the farmers that grow the coffee and the various processes that it has to get to your business. And environment, there's so many aspects about that, all the way from use of resources and input and impact on water, land, and of course carbon emissions. And customers, it's about product stewardship. It's about business models that empower others and improve the impact of others as well as their sort of public benefits and quality of life. So it's very comprehensive, and I encourage you to have a look if you have some time. I'll give you a short demonstration later on, but having done the impact assessment, you'll get a score that looks like this. And this is a score of one of the highest scoring B Corps in Australia, Australian Ethical. And on the B Corp directory, which is on our website, you get to click on each of these sections and actually see how a B Corp is scoring in each of these sections, and including subtopics within each one. So there is a level of transparency that comes with certification. And of course, again, we're not saying, it's about measuring your impact first. There are lots of uses for the B Impact Assessment, not just for companies. It is also used by investors and suppliers and government departments. We're actually doing a pilot program with New Zealand government right now to enable more organizations to embark on measuring their impact and managing their impact. So it is a tool that we have heavily invested in over 15 years, and we hope that it will bring value to you. And perhaps I will pause here to see if there are any questions. If not, I'm more than happy to give you an inside look of the B impact assessment and give you a little demonstration of the tool. Does that sound good to people?
Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Sorry, the only question I have is, are you able to answer the questions in stages? So we do, like, will it save all of our questions that we have completed, and then we can come back to it, over time?
Yes, absolutely. So the assessment is live, so it will save as you go, and you can see your score also change as you answer the questions. As I said, it is a positive framework. It encourages proactive management. So the questions itself, I'll just give you an example. Let's just go into governance. And this is a mock example of B Lab's, our assessment. So I'll click on the question that says governance structure. Well, that's not a good example. Internal good governance. This is very relevant for small businesses. So this question asks about how does a company support internal management and good governance? And so there are 3 different answer options, and answering partially some of these, selecting some of these options, such as having job descriptions that outline responsibility and decision-making authority, and management team meetings that plan strategy, will get you incremental points from this question. So by saving each question to answer your question, yes, it will add to the score. And you can just go into the B impact assessment on the side and see how many questions are there, how many have been answered, what score you're having. I'll stop there for now. Any other questions?
I'm just thinking what my day's like with constant interruptions. So once you start off, have you got like a time frame that you need to complete the whole assessment by, or is it something that you can do over like a month or so?
Yeah, you can take it in your own sort of your own timeline.
Thank you.
Yep. Just
extension of that question. At what point does it go live? So is there a complete submit? That's how.
Yeah, so if you're just using this tool on your own for your own purposes without seeking certification, there's no timeline, there's no pressure to submit. Once you submit, that means you are seeking certification, you're seeking verification. So certification comes with verification. That means the B Lab certification and verification team will then look at your answers and ask you for documentation to verify your answers, and then your score will essentially be a verified score. So for there is no pressure to do this. Out of the 200,000 companies that have used the assessment, only 5,000 are certified, who've gone through that process. So you're welcome to use this, without hitting submit ever.
I think we're good to kick on, Mindy.
Yep, great. And if anyone has questions about verification or certification, I'm happy to talk about that, but I'm conscious that we want to demonstrate the tool and show you the value of using the tool today. So once you get into the assessment in the dashboard, you'll be sort of selecting into a track. And the B impact assessment is adaptive, as I said before. So there's one entry point, but there'll be a series of questions that the tool will ask you to determine, to make sure that they're giving you the right set of questions. There are actually close to 80 different tracks in the assessment, depending on your company size, your market, and the sector and industry that you're in. So I can send a link through to Ash to share with you to give you some guidance to ensure that you're selecting the right track. So because, if you're selling products, for example, but you're not doing the manufacturing, then there are certain questions that you don't get. But service companies will get different products, different questions as well, because they're not dealing with a physical product. So, so it's important to make sure that you're on the right track so that the assessment of your organization is appropriate. So that's one thing to check. But once that's, once you're comfortable with that, you can really just dive into the B impact assessment. And this is what you'll see here. The 5 sections plus a 6th section called the disclosure questionnaire. And once you dive into the workers section, for example, there's 42 questions, and there are all these questions from, what are retirement programs available? Is there a ability to participate in employee ownership? What are some of the compensation policies and practices? One of my favorites, let me see if it's in here. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I think it's in the community section. A high to low pay ratio, which is, what's the ratio of the lowest paid versus highest paid employee. This is an interesting one. So yeah, and measurement of diversity, diversity in terms of how you work with your suppliers as well. So there's some really, comprehensive questions, as I said before, and you can really select the answer option. I'm just not going to change it. Oh, it's saving automatically. So I don't know what I did there, but I'm just going to put it back there. So you can see that the assessment just calculates on its own. And there are constantly new new features added. And some of the useful features including bookmark. So if you are the project manager who is taking on the 200 questions over a certain time, and you realize that, this is a question I don't know, I might have to talk to my procurement manager, you can bookmark the question and then download your bookmark report later on to see what are all the lists of questions that you really need to engage someone else to give you the answers. And there might be a number of different people in your organization that you might have to engage. So the way that I suggest that you approach this is to take a first pass. So as I said before, it might take you, a few hours, depending on the size and complexity of your organization. But I did have a B Corp that's a kind of 0 to 10 person, like a 10-person consultancy. The CEO was able to answer all the questions in less than 2 hours. And that's because he had the operational knowledge of the company in his head, and he was able to answer all the questions. But I think if you gave yourself an hour or two per section, you did it, across a number of weeks, that would be a really good way to just break it down in smaller bite-sized chunks. Another feature is the goal setting feature. So if, for example, the answer to supplier ownership diversity is like, we don't know, but we should really find out, or maybe we should have a policy around trying to work with diverse suppliers, you could set that as a goal. And so you could describe your notes, and you can set a particular answer option as your goal. You can give yourself a due date, and you can even receive an email reminder at your due date. So this is one of my favorite features in the whole assessment, which is setting goals. And then you can get your goal report right here. So these are some of the questions I've set as goals. And obviously some of the goals are outdated because this is a mock assessment. But that's one of my favorite tools. And you can also see your improvement report here as another way of looking at what other areas in the organization you want to improve. Another report that's really handy is your B impact assessment performance. So once you have completed the assessment, we call it the first pass, you get to see these different topics and the total score that you've received for each one. And so right here at the top, there's a benchmarking feature that actually allows you to see for those topics, how does your score compare to other companies in your country, in your sector, and in your size range. So there's some really interesting analysis and comparisons available. And another comparison that I often suggest is also comparing with your heroes. So who are the companies that you admire? And if they're a certified B Corp, you can go on to our B Corp directory, such as Australian Ethical, and compare if they're, how are they achieving a score like that? And what are those improvements that you can aspire to? I'll pause there for another second and see if there are any questions.
Just got a comment really and a confession, and I thought, oh, it's just another little stamp to put on your window, and I just want to say thank you so much for making it not that. It feels like it's really useful and generous, I love the goal setting thing, and it feels really encouraging. So thank you.
Thank you. Really, really great feedback. And yes, that's why I guess we are a not-for-profit organization, but we also call this a public good. We don't say that as often anymore, but we do see it as such, in that this helps us achieve our mission of encouraging more businesses to be a force for good and taking on sort of behavior change and operational change in their business. And another thing that I want to sort of point out is that when I go to that the impact assessment report, you will see some of these questions have an impact business model, and so it just really gives you a sense of what we measure. So we measure how a business is run, and as well as what they set out to do. And one way to think about the difference between operations and impact business model is that, let's just take recycling as an example. Hopefully, we're all recycling as consumers and as businesses. But if as a business, I'm taking on recycling as my product, I'm creating a solution or a service or a product to better help companies sort their garbage or something like that, that becomes my offering, that becomes my impact business model, and it gives you extra points in the assessment as well. So, Jeff's company, Solar Run, I would imagine would get some extra points because he has chosen to work in this industry that's beneficial to the environment, for example. And if you're sort of an impact consultant or a sustainability consultant, you will get extra points for helping other organizations improve their impact. Similarly, if you're an accountant, but you specialize in working with charities or not-for-profits or social enterprises or other B Corps, purpose-driven companies, that will give you extra points in, serving purpose-driven organizations. So I guess impact business models is about the extent to which you have modified and changed your business to specifically deliver more impact in your organization. And there are many different ways of doing that. And, even for B Corps, if you look at the kind of 450 B Corps in Australia, New Zealand, many of them would just get in at 80, and there's no shame in that, and it's actually a really good, and some of them may not have any impact business model, and that's fine because they are really putting themselves, we call B Corp a starting line, not a finish line, and they're actually putting themselves up to be held accountable and on this continuous improvement journey. And so, encouraging more companies to take up impact business models is kind of, really my passion here, as I come from the social enterprise background where, organizations or businesses are created with impact in mind. And there are many social enterprises like Who Gives a Crap, who is a certified B Corp and a certified social enterprise as well. And I think it's really great that more and more businesses are learning from these high impact models and learning how they can also, change their practices over time to deliver more impact. So yes, Jeff, is that you?
Yeah, I was just curious, based on assessments that have been filled out and based on people that are certified, do we have the ability to be connected with people that are locally that have done that? Like, can you share with us, so we can be on the ground with people, say here in Coffs or, on the East Coast, so we can bounce off each other and share ideas and communicate?
Absolutely. So, part of the value proposition for B Corp certification, and that's because that's the leading part of our work, is to create community, is to create a tribe of like-minded businesses so that they can support each other on their continuous improvement journey. So there are actually two ways. If you're certified B Corp, absolutely, we have online platforms, we have events that bring people together. We have working groups for people to come together on specific topics that interest you. But if you're not a B Corp, there's still ways to engage. We have what we call Be Local groups. And so Be Local And I believe there's a B Local Byron. There's a group in Byron sort of starting up. There's a B Local Sydney. There is a B Local in the north, so Good North, they call themselves, and it's kind of north of Gold Coast. And more of these groups are forming. So if there's interest to have something here where you are, yeah, we would love to see if there are other B Corps that would be interested to connect and more widely sort of form a community. So yes, we'd love to kind of investigate that with you.
Sounds great.
I might just bring it to life a little bit. My name is Don. I work for a company called Oasis. I work for various companies. Mindy and I've spoken before. Loving Earth, a chocolate manufacturer, we're looking at it. And they reached out to a number of other food manufacturers in New Zealand, so EcoStore over in New Zealand, Flora Fauna, and the level of encouragement and support from existing people, and also some people that have looked at it and not looked at it, they're all trying to grow together. So you will find that even if they're not local, getting on the phone or getting digitally, they will all look to help each other. And they want to spread the message and they want to support. And that's certainly been my experience of trying to connect people that are thinking about it. And some have been put off because of actually, you need to commit, and you need to commit people to stay on top of processes and documentation, not wait for 3 years' time to go, have we got paperwork in place? So they will go, okay, well, what are the pitfalls as well as the positives? I'm understanding why you do it, but the community really will pull together and help you as much as you can.
I'm so happy to hear that feedback. And sorry, I didn't get your name and organization.
Don from Oasis. We spoke when I was in supporting Loving Earth Chocolate.
Ah, right. Okay, great. Yep. Awesome. It is a very small and wonderful world, isn't it? I will wait for more questions, but whilst that is happening, so really, encourage everybody to use the B Impact Assessment, and really a 3-step process. It sounds very easy. Spend a few hours, get your baseline score, you'll learn a lot from this process. And every company that has done this kind of tell us that, wow, we know so much more about our business now. And we know also where we can potentially have an impact. And then hopefully by the end of it, you can develop a bit of a plan around how you prioritize the changes that you'll make in your organization. So that goal setting function will help you identify all the different opportunities, but then the next step is to prioritize how you resource that and what's the timeline for achieving those goals. And then there's the opportunity to track your performance over time. And obviously the value in certification is that you get that kind of verification. You get someone to kind of help you understand whether you have applied, interpreted the questions right and whatnot. But there is absolutely no, requirement to do that. Using the tool itself it's already wonderful. And so the title of this event is Business for Good is Good for Business. And I think I just want to end with that and also open up for more questions, is that I really believe that, I think many of you here do believe in that as well. This is not just about doing something that feels good with what is changing in business, that this is a way for us to differentiate from competitors, but do it in a very meaningful way. Greenwashing is prevalent, and without doing the homework, without doing the work to substantiate your claims, you're actually putting your company at risk. So a framework like this helps you to actually do the work, helps you build credibility. And it's important to talk about that work. So even if you don't certify, you can publish what you're doing in your impact reports and just make what you're doing transparent, and put yourself, ask your stakeholders to hold you accountable, and share and do the storytelling, because the storytelling is important to engage more companies and more organizations to engage in this way. The second point is about engaging and attracting talent. I think we used to say that it's for millennials, but I don't think it's just for millennials. I think we all want to be part of something meaningful and purposeful, and actually, doing that through where most of us spend most of our waking days, which is at work, is a great way to do that. And there's lots of people actually wanting to come together and support each other to use business as a force for good as well. So, and we've seen that in B Corps. Actually, let me just go to this. Yeah, in certified B Corps, the data actually shows that their employees are more engaged. And so that's been really interesting. And it lowers the cost of attracting talent. More B Corps tell us that, yeah, we're getting people applied to jobs because they said, because we're a B Corp. So that's really good. And the last point is around that continuous improvement. It is a roadmap, and we hope that you use it, whether you certify or not. The tool is absolutely free. So yeah, more questions?
I have a bit of a comment, Ash, here. I love that quote in there, Mindy, that I'm not sure I got it right, but you can't change what you don't measure. I just think that, yeah, what Kim mentioned, you've really clearly illustrated the B impact assessment. I love it because what it does, I think we're all at this level. It helps identify what we're doing really well and where we can improve, and to take that next step is to potentially shape up that impact model. Last year we put together a group of local businesses that operate in the tourism space, and they went through a certification program with Ecotourism Australia, and I know that some of us will be looking at doing going through the impact assessment just to trial it. But the power of getting people together and doing it together was really impactful. So I suppose we do have a sustainable business working group that we coordinate out of council, but it's really just the businesses and people involved who run it. But that could be a really good space if people want to go back to their businesses and do that assessment. They're welcome to come into our group and talk about some of those challenges and what they identified, and really kind of connect with other people that want to do that and potentially go to that next level. So yeah, just putting that out there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and in the last couple of years since the pandemic, we've really used the opportunity to build out some of our new programs as well. And what we did was develop a training program for consultants. And to date, we've run 3 cohorts and trained over 60 consultants all over Australia and New Zealand, who are now proficient in using the B Impact Assessment to work with companies like you of all sizes in all sectors, to really, to be your trusted advisor, to walk alongside you, to hold your hand as you go down this can be quite scary, daunting journey when you're faced with 200 questions and not knowing where to start. It's really, if there's any one of you interested in that, we have programs, there's other support available, and that's it's encouraging to see the interest in this.
We had Ali, we had her at one of our recent events where she spoke. So she's engaged with a couple of businesses. So yeah, she's fantastic and really keen to do more work with her in the future. She's unreal.
Who's Ali?
Ali is a certified B Corp consultant. She's up in, I think, Mullumbimby she lives in. Is that right, Mindy? She's up that way somewhere.
Yeah, she's in Byron. Yep.
Right.
And then we've got a few in Byron at the moment as well in our recent training. So we've just trained another cohort recently. And so, yeah, love to do a bit more of a connection. And, I know that we've been piloting a program in New Zealand to take companies through a very structured, but also high touch, high support way of doing the impact assessment. What we found is that people like you guys are very time poor and have lots to juggle in managing your business. And so giving the wraparound support in undertaking even just, the first pass of doing your assessment is really useful to help provide the guidance, to provide the sort of, ability to unpack questions, to understand definitions, and to really, talk about why you want to do something like this, like translate that into your business in terms of the positive outcomes that you can see, because sometimes it's not obvious when you're trying to answer so many questions. So yeah, we'd love to see if there's any interest from this group to maybe form a bit of that local community cohort together.
Any other questions? Yes.
So I just have a question. Once accredited, is it like a yearly annual fee? Is it every 3 years you pay your fees? Is it something that you reassessed after 3 years? I just want a bit more clarity around that.
Yep. So you're asking about certification. You reassess every 3 years, and you go through a similar process. So I'll just share a quick slide whilst you're asking about that. There's actually, sorry, the sirens are going behind me. There are 3 requirements of certification. One is to get that 80 points out of 200 plus in the BIA, and that's verified. And so that's what we call a performance requirement. And then there is the legal accountability. So that's where you're changing your constitution or company articles of incorporation to embed a purpose clause and a stakeholder clause. And the stakeholder clause basically says that directors in the company will make decisions considering the benefits and impacts of their stakeholders, including employees, the environment, community, et cetera, and being explicit around that. The third part is about transparency of your score. So, Australian Ethical, as I showed you earlier, has their score on their B Corp profile. And so and you're sort of telling people or letting people know, where are those areas that you're doing really well in, and potentially where are some other areas of improvement as well. So those are the 3 requirements. And I'm happy to share all my slides, but here is kind of a little bit of the journey to certification and some of the timelines. There is a wait time. So if you submit the assessment, it is taking about, 12 months for a small company to certify. And yeah, we are working really hard to increase our capacity given the kind of surge in demand. So yeah, we're updating everyone as we go, but happy to chat more around this if you have questions about certification. But yeah, I can share all my slides today with Ash to share with you if you have further questions.
No worries. So I guess cost, sorry, I'm the person that's always looking at the budget.
Tell us the dollar figure. Don't be
Like,
shy.
yeah, I just need to know how much is it going to cost to get accredited. Sorry, I'm the crazy one that asks all the weird questions, but yeah, I would love to know this. If you'd like to share it, or I can just wait for a couple of years thinking, perfect.
Yeah, so there's this is grouped. So if you go to our website, every single there's probably about, 25 levels or so, according to your annual certification, your annual revenue. So it starts at $1,000 if you are sort of a one-man business, one-person business, under 150,000 trading turnover, and it kind of increases a little bit by there. And it's paid annually, as you were seeking clarification.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mindy, is that tax deductible?
No, because this is a service, it's a fee, and we are not a charity. We don't have DGR status. It's not a donation as well. So
It would be a plan of business expense.
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Business expense definitely, but not not donating.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay, any final questions? All good.
Another place to go, another resource is we have a short course called the Introduction to B Corp. If you are, and it's not just for B Corp, like it is kind of an introduction to being purpose-driven as well, and sort of the value proposition of why business for good is good for business. And you can hear it directly from B Corps themselves saying why they're choosing to be this way. So if you're looking to develop a bit of a case for maybe your management team or the owners of the business, and people find this really useful to help them kind of build the case for why for the why, and you're hearing it direct. And you know, the short answer is there's not one reason for any company. It really depends on sort of, you know, where you are as an organization, what you've already been doing, and what really appeals to you. So there are a number of reasons for doing so, but hearing these stories from other B Corps, I think will help you sort of form your own views around what benefits that you will get out of, you know, being purpose driven. And that may change over time as well as your organization, you know, develops. So, yeah, again, totally free to do that course.
That's awesome. I didn't know about that. Final questions before we wrap things up?
I'm good.
All good.
It's not a question, but I'll check with them. But I met with a company called Mark Partners in the city. They're a B Corp. I think they're the only legal firm, but they're pretty open to helping and supporting potential people with advice around shareholder agreements and stuff. So if they're comfortable, I'll share the details with Ash and you can share it out. So
Yeah,
just as an option.
Yes, no, good point. Okay, Mindy, I really appreciate your time today, and everyone who, yeah, the bit of a round of applause.
Thank you. Haven't gotten applause for a while, so that's
Yeah, there you go. Thank you so much. And some of the questions I thought were really on point, so you know, it really helped guide the conversation. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, if you can send those slides, I'll make sure everyone gets that along with the recorded video. Yeah, again, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Ash, and thank you, everyone. I wish that next time we'll be meeting in person, having a tea or a coffee in real life. And looks like the sun is pouring in. Have a wonderful day. It's been a pleasure to see you. So
Yeah, thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.